You're listening to the Light Over Time podcast with David Sargent and Korey Bartos. It is January 19th, 2025, and we are kind of experimenting with hopefully streamlining this show so we can do cooler things outside of the show, and I'm not spending like a half a day editing this every time we have a show. Hopefully this will completely introduce the ability to have guests in the near future, and hopefully the ability to potentially even stream together. Which is something that I think would be really fun once we get kind of a couple of things kind of panned out. And you can see my cats are probably going to fight right there. So that's the thing. Okay, so we got a pretty interesting show, I'd say. I have a couple of topics. I have a thing to ask David, and we'll get kind of into some of those things. So first, how are you, David?
I'm good. I'm very cold because we're pretty much at negative temperatures for the next like forever days and disappointed, ready to stop enjoying football for the rest of my life now.
Well, I mean, it was one of the best runs. We'll see you next year, bud.
Yeah, yeah.
15-2, first time in franchise history is pretty epic. I'm not a football guy, but I read the internet, so
Good season, bad game.
yeah,
Bad
yeah,
game.
we love it. I have a coffee today from Strange Matter, which he doesn't even have a coffee. Damn it. We'll get into that in a moment, but this is Ponte Village Reserve, Colombia. It is a
Ooh,
honey uh, process,
that's what I
and
roast.
it's
A Ponte honey.
yeah, and it's really good. It's really good. I think this is the first time I've had it. I don't think I had a Colombia that you've roasted, um, but maybe I have. I don't remember. But anyway,
I've done a bunch of Columbias in the past, yeah.
yeah, yeah. But you're a Ponte.
But
This
that a Ponte. What are you getting out of that one? I'm curious how they're roasting it.
this one's kind of nice. It's got kind of like a tartness to it. It
Hmm.
might be like a little cherry, maybe.
Yeah.
And then it's got like I don't know. It's not like the average Columbia, which I really like about it. It's kind of like a.
Yes.
It almost feels like if a Columbia was trying to cosplay as like an Ethiopia, which
Yeah.
is kind of a vibe.
We advertise ours with notes of black cherry, licorice, anise, that kind of family, a little boozy,
Sure.
sweeter, but not quite Ethiopia sweet.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's awesome. It's
yeah.
a really sweet mid ground if you're not into like the really kind of wild African style roasts. And then
Hmm.
like I could probably get like my dad who likes like dirt coffee to drink this and go, "Oh, okay, I taste a little bit of that cherry. Yeah, it's pretty good." Anyway, okay, so we have a couple of things. I think I'll start with kind of the first big news kind of project that I'm kind of working on with my buddy Ryan, who I've talked about on the show a bunch. He's submitted a bunch of photos, and he's been kind of my cohort in maintaining some semblance of inspiration and being involved in photography right now. Not to be confused with my other buddy Ryan, who does all the gun stuff and the
Oh,
cool
yes.
documentary.
Easy to confuse.
There are two Ryans. They're the only two people that I generally talk about on this channel, and this is one that I've known for a long time through guitar and stuff. But really cool guy. We are talking about, and I've been thinking about doing, and then it kind of dawned on me when we were talking about like the meetups and the trying to build more community. Um, I believe that it would be almost a waste of resources and people's time if we tried to just do a light over time Discord. I don't want to do just a light overtime Discord. I think there's not really enough just like talking about our projects and stuff to have like a thriving Discord. It would end up being like a single channel or something like that, or maybe a channel or two for like photo shares and then like just meme posting or whatever. So I came to him and I asked if he would be interested in kind of collaborating on a Discord. I think I would be completely willing to invite other people who wanted to have their own channel on said Discord, but then have some general channels about photography or videography or like movie talk. Kind of get into a space where we can start talking less on Instagram, because a lot of the people I talk to are just on Instagram.
Hmm.
And then I have pockets. Like I have like a photography channel on a guitar pedal Discord. I have like a couple of other, and it's not focused. It's not the same type of stuff, and it's not kind of supporting the kind of conversations I'd like to have and the projects that I'd like to be inspired to do and do with others. So we're gonna look at that, which I'm sure like I'd like to have my own like just sub channel in there. David, I'm sure you can have one for like your YouTube channels and stuff like that. And then we can kind of have like our own little hub where we can bring a bunch of people together, share content, share projects, share photography, and share ideas, and not just like, hey, also sign up for my Discord. I hate having like 50. I do not care. I don't want to be in like 20. I frequent like two or three. So I think making a hub would be great. What are your thoughts?
I think that's great too. I also think that streamlines and allows people who want to, but kind of maybe forgot. If we ever bring back photo sharing, that's going to be a much easier way for a place for those to exist where we can easily pull them up. And people will have access to that much more quickly without having to remember what the dang email was.
Yeah, and I don't want to try and do like I don't like storing it in a Google Drive and you can go look at it like that. There's a lot of
Yeah,
opportunity in a
yeah.
Discord channel for collaborating and doing all sorts of things. And so we're testing this right now. I'm recording this episode through OBS, kind of trying to make sure that if I can bring us in, a photo share would be as simple as like screen sharing a Discord and like just running because I can have a locked Discord where I can just have like my stuff in it or whatever, and
Sure.
not random people can say things,
Yep.
and should be kind of good. Should be pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So our not resolution ish episode, we kind of talked about kind of building more community, and that was kind of one of the things I wanted to do. I obviously want to do more in person in Michigan stuff, but one of the big things would be kind of connecting more of my people outside of the real social media, being a little bit more inclusively exclusive, where there's not just fodder and stuff. It's people that we can cultivate a community with, and it'll likely end up being somewhat of an echo chamber, but I think it'll be a good place to kind of try and garner better communication with other artists. I'd really like to focus on like what it looks like to critique images that other people
Mm,
are doing, like when you're asking for a critique and then how you can critique, because it's not like it's not an easy process. It's not something that people have gone through. If you haven't had somebody legitimately critique your work, it can be kind of daunting. Like it's not like
hmm.
shitting on someone's work. It's not like
No.
destroying their images. It's describing like the things I'm seeing that you're doing intentionally and the ways that you can potentially think about it in the future. It's not this is bad and this
Yeah.
is why I don't like it. There's a lot of ways to do it. I've had so many art classes in my life and so many things, and I was a teacher aide and stuff like that. So like I have a lot of experience in this, but I'd like to do it more with others.
Yeah, if tens of thousands of dollars at art school taught me anything, it's that actually critiques are super valuable when they're productive. They're stressful, they're challenging, they challenge you to think about your own stuff more critically when someone else is giving it a different perspective. But when you get a productive critique, that just helps you grow as an artist and as a person who's thinking more broadly so much faster than if you hadn't received that. And giving critiques is a skill. Giving a good critique is such a valuable skill for other people. So having that community that goes back and forth like that, so important.
Yeah. And going with that, the way we've kind of done photo shares, we never really wanted it to be a critique. We wanted it to be kind of a thing. But
Yeah. Yeah.
I think having a Discord would open us up to literally
Yeah.
doing shares where we're just sharing cool images and talking about them,
Hmm.
and then doing critiques and showing what that looks like.
Yeah,
Um,
there's space for both.
And I think like if you don't leave a critique maybe a little bit butthurt, but mostly inspired, then like it probably wasn't that good of a critique. Like it was probably somebody
Mm,
just like looking for faults in your images.
mm.
But it's like no one goes into a critique and is like, oh, it would have been really cool if you went like if you stopped down just like a little bit more and like there was more shallow depth of it. Like that's not gonna ever be. It's like it's usually going to be like very like constructive in the elements that we feel you can think about changing images in the future.
Yeah.
It's not what I would do to this photo to make this better because it's garbage.
And if you think maybe you don't know what it is to give a critique, a quick guideline is compliment, feedback, compliment, sandwich the feedback.
Yeah, always. And it because it depends, right? It's like, hey, if I go
Yeah.
into a critique, what is the critique for? Is the critique for I want to just blanketly be a better photographer? I'm not sure exactly what I'm doing. Can you tell me what I'm doing well, and then share what you think I'm doing poorly? That's one critique. If you're doing photography for a long time, but maybe you're trying a new type of photography, that context changes what the critique is about. You shouldn't really go into a
Yeah.
critique without a goal. It shouldn't be like, hey, are these images good or bad? Because that's not that
Right.
helpful. That doesn't really do anything for the artist. It does nothing for the person critiquing. It's like it's a bunch of subjective stuff slammed together
Right.
that like has a very light objectivity.
Right. Yeah. And then oftentimes, once you really get into it, and if you're part of a group that critiques often, you start to realize that it's so not about like the settings or the gear, and so much about the conceptual side of
Yeah.
producing the image. So it's like, is it good or bad is not helpful. Absolutely. It's more like, what could I have done differently? Here's my ideas. If I were on set with you, here's maybe what I would have suggested.
Yeah, for sure. It's cool. So
Yeah.
something that I think we'll probably discuss doing like some short form content about as well,
Yeah.
and then kind of moving into again the broader scope of actually helping people improve or get off of plateaus or
Hmm.
just experience different genres and stuff. I think it's important to do, and it really kind of revitalizes at least me when I'm like, you know what, I'm going to go into a totally different thing. I'm still not a wildlife photographer, so I have a lot of questions for David. I have a lot of questions for some of the other people that I follow on Instagram all the time. I've been
Hmm.
shooting. I'm not going to really ask that many questions about product photography. I'm just not going to do it. It's the one that I've been
Yeah.
doing for 15 years. So
Yeah.
like if there's and usually if I have a question for that, it's like very specific for a style of a shot that I already have like 90% of it. I'm like, how did you make the light do a thing? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you shouldn't ever feel bad that you want to ask questions. You shouldn't ever feel bad that you're not, if you're a 20-year photographer. If you go into a new genre, baby, it's a new game. I'm still not even close to an astrophotographer. If I'm shooting the sky, I'm still asking David questions. So, yeah. Um, with that community-based topic, I also wanted to go into: did the meet happen? Do
Yeah.
you want to get into
Yeah.
this? I would love to hear
Yeah,
about it.
good segue, because that's the heart of what I wanted to talk about today. It was so much fun. Yeah, so January 18th, which would be yesterday, I believe,
Hmm.
was the day we had our first meeting. And I put feelers out there literally only with DMs. Like, I didn't post, I didn't try to grab broadly, and just about everyone who I messaged showed up, and it was awesome. So 11 o'clock, there were people there that before I got there, and I'll set the scene a little bit. Kurt Babcock and his wife Taryn opened up a studio downtown in Marquette. They had their grand opening. That went well, and public's been receiving it and supporting them well, and it's just been great so far. And Kurt and I are trying, are co-leading this thing that I'm hesitant to call a club, but it's this roundtable discussion. Like, we're all in a room surrounded by art of both Taryn's and Kurt's. Kurt is a photographer, fantastic wildlife photography, among other things, and Taryn does a lot of painting, and I think she also does some photography. But there was me, Rufa, who you know, and then a bunch of other people who I'd never met yet that Kurt reached out to, and they came. So we brought in two different like friend groups, and he knew people and I knew people, and smashed together. I think it was like eight people in the room for the first one, which was really cool. And so essentially for the first one, we just did introductions, and the and the introductions led to conversations one after the other. Hi, I'm David. I've done this for this long, and I do this now, and it didn't go from one to the next. It was more like, oh, let's talk about that thing that you said you do. Like like what's your approach and all that stuff. And basically every single one of us who did that, it was just engaging discussion, and it was so much fun. So we went around the table, and I met some new photographers, and it was a blast. I mean, there was a range of people who did different things. So like, I'm kind of all over the place with what I do. Rufa does a lot of astrophotography, and then we had people who were doing portraiture, like really like conceptual portraiture, non-traditional stuff, very creative work. People who want to shoot more portraiture, but have trouble like stepping into it with social stuff, and like I think there's a ton of avenue for each of us to support one another, trying to get into the things that they're seeing other photographers do, and that's like honestly like I don't know if that was the primary goal, but now that I'm seeing it, that's going to be a big thing.
Sure.
Less about like let's go out and shoot together, which we're going to do, but more like I really want to get into this thing. What are the things that I should be thinking about type of stuff? And
Sure.
those are the discussions. I anticipated an hour-long meeting, and it was 2.5 hours in total.
Nice.
Like it was just great. So yeah, 8 or 9 people. And then we created a group chat on Instagram because like 99% of us are all there. We all followed each other, so we're in a group chat now. And so the next one's February 15th, I think. So if you're in Marquette, Second Story Studio, you can show up at 11 a.m. There was a bunch of people added into the group who couldn't make it on the first day that were all, I mean, there was like half a dozen of them who were like, oh, sorry, I couldn't make it. I just realized, so it's going to grow, and it will probably grow beyond the capacity of the room we sit in kind of quickly at this pace. But it was just fantastic. Yeah. So next time we're going to meet in studio again because it's probably going to be blistering cold again. But we do anticipate like maybe for the next month we meet outside somewhere and shoot around and maybe have some discussion as well. But we utilized his display in studio, and so at the very end we all airdropped him an image that we liked most from 2024. And so we ran around again and just talked about that image, where we were coming from when we were taking it, and that was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
and
that's
so I think
badass.
there's also going to be this monthly like bring an image type thing, and we'll prompt before we meet about what that type of image should be. And the next one, as I was walking out, and it's like 9 degrees or something out, and Rufa joked with me. She's like, "Oh, we should tell people to bring an image that they shot in the coldest temperatures that they can remember." So that's going to be the next one. Or otherwise, just a great image they took between the first meeting and the second meeting. So yeah, man, it was a lot of fun. So
Yeah, that's awesome.
that was my Saturday, other than watching the Lions shoot themselves in the foot multiple times. So it was a great start to the day. I'll just say that.
Yeah, that's awesome. By the way, I can mute in OBS and not to you. Sorry. My cat is freaking out in the background. That's incredible, and that's what I would hope from a meetup, right? Like,
Hmm.
we can link up. It's like the reason I don't want to go to SHOT Show. Everybody's been asking me. It's like this link up of the entire industry, but it's like I'm not going to achieve anything there. We can meet up and come up with an idea to go shoot something at any time. Like, I don't need to have a group. I want to like get together and like get into the weeds of something. Have
Hmm.
conversations about like improving. Have conversations about like I don't even know, spots, everything else. There's so much that can happen when you cultivate a setting to be in person and have a conversation that's better than like, hey, let's get together and discuss potentially shooting. Like
Yeah.
that, it's just that's not productive.
Right.
That's the first step to get to where the meeting's at. That's not like we
Yeah.
can go
Yeah.
shoot
You got to
wherever,
cut some of
and
that out.
yeah, so that's really brilliant. I love sharing photography. I'm like desperate at this point. Like, one of the best things that Ryan does is he'll have a handful of images from like that he shot that weekend or whatever from a lens or whatever,
Mm.
and he'll just like kind of cold call me basically and like drop them all into my DMs and be like, hey, obviously Instagram compression sucks, but these are just some shots that I got this week, and I'm like,
Yeah.
this is epic. Like that cold call me and drop a bunch of images you took that week in my DMs, and don't even ask for like critiques or what do you think or whatever. Just like share them. I'm down. It's so good, and
Yeah.
it's better than like stumbling across your images. That's good too. Keep posting your stuff everywhere, but like. Oh man, it's something good about like, hey, I took these. It's like like a dog finding something in the backyard and bringing it to you. Hey, look at this thing that I found. It's like a dead animal, but you're like, oh, hey,
Yeah.
buddy, that's neat.
Yeah.
I just love it. It's pure. It's awesome.
Yeah.
It makes me stop and think about the images way more than if I stumble across the post.
Oh,
Um,
100%.
yeah,
Yeah.
if you're just like, hey, look at these things I shot with this lens, And then now all of a sudden I'm already looking at them and inspecting them in a different way than if
Yeah.
I was just gonna like stumble across them and I read, you're like, hey, these are some shots I took this weekend on this lens. Hashtag whatever. I'm guilty of it too. That's how we post on the social media, but it's just
Yeah.
not.
Yeah.
It's not as engaging to another photographer. Um,
Right.
it just is kind of what it is for other humans, and I don't even
It's
know
more
that.
meaningful.
Yeah, and I don't even know that we know what we're doing necessarily as photographers on social media outside of like posting stuff and hoping that it gets likes for like what purpose, right?
Dude, that hits home to a lot of people.
Yeah, like I
That's a whole nother conversation.
I know, and but I think where you're going to get like your jollies or whatever for shooting and sharing is going to be actually having conversations, which social media is no longer providing.
No longer.
Um,
It used to be.
yeah, it used to
It
be
used to
awesome.
be.
I remember making if I could go back, if I was a photographer when I was in like early high school, I made a new pro boards forum like every other month. And
Mm.
me and my friends would go, hey, we're going to make this forum to talk about like the movies and games and stuff that we like. I'd go make an entire forum thread, like whole website. And then we would share that around to all of our friends and we would like use it to talk. And then it'd probably fall into obscurity because we were children and didn't know how to moderate anything. It would crumble and fall. And then we'd make a new one in a couple months. And it was incredible. But that was like early conversations,
Yeah.
early photography forums. Like
Yeah.
forums still I can't even believe that they don't exist in the way that they do because they're infinitely better. They were always so engaging. Reddit tried to be the like this is where all forums go now, and it's kind of okay, but we all have whatever our notions about Reddit is. So
Yeah. Right.
like you can go into like the Sony Alpha forums which are like kind of okay. Like our Sony Alpha's not bad, but it's like oh, I'm going to share my photos like I do on Instagram hoping that they get upvotes. And then there's like 3% people that need help or like actually asking to
Yeah.
engage. Otherwise,
Right.
it's like the same sick travel photos. Like, hey, this is shot on my A7R5 with a 600 f4. Just
Yeah.
why? It's
That
a
I just bought.
shrine.
That was my first camera.
Yeah. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. Sidebar. I'm at freaking Elderly Music last weekend or something like that. It was Sunday. I normally go on the weekdays where there's nobody in there. I was like, I'm just gonna go play a couple guitars. I'm kind of in the market, and I'm like, cool. They had like a Dream amp that I haven't been able to own. I could plug in a couple of guitars and really enjoy myself. I was vibing on the amp, and then this dude comes in, plugs a $3,000 Les Paul into a bass amp for some reason, cranks the distortion, starts playing Crazy Train. This man's like 40. He is not a young kid. And he's like beep 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 boop beep boop beep boop. And then this guy walks over, this young kid, probably 27 years old, walks over and he's like, "Oh, that's a really nice guitar. I really like that model." Blah blah blah. Just tries to spark up a conversation with
Mm.
this guy. And he's like, "Oh yeah, I got one just like this at home. I'm actually here because I have 9 Les Pauls that they're appraising.
Oh my
I have like
goodness.
32. I'm like crazy about it, dude. I just started playing last year." And I was already mad because like I'm in there playing like really like relatively quietly, like just trying to amp out, trying to be respectful. He's just in there like a freaking bull in a china shop, like a just total jackwagon. Oh my gosh, it's the same thing. Anyway,
Yeah. Yeah.
I had to get that out because it's still I think about it almost every day right now. It's awful.
I'm sorry for
It
you.
makes me so sad. Anyway, that's great. I look forward to that. I look forward to hopefully coming up for one of those. That sounds rad.
Yeah. That'd be cool.
And yeah, I definitely want to do like coffee meets and like especially with wildlife photography. It's like, hey, let's get like coffee right before the sun comes up and go to a spot.
Well, I had thought, oh, it'd be a good idea to bring coffee to this thing. So I brewed some. I still have like some of my farmers market stuff. So I had my air pot. I brought my air pot. I only had time to do one brew in it, and I was like, I don't know how many people are going to be there. Of course, it gets tapped out immediately as soon as we get there. And so I brought 60 grams more of the Columbia honey and the V60, but I forgot the filter. So all these all these guys had to watch me use a paper towel to filter through coffee, and I was like, I'm so sorry. The roaster at Dead River Coffee is using paper towel to make your coffee, but
Yeah.
I think it ended up pretty good. I didn't try that batch.
It was probably
But,
fine.
Yeah, man.
I've
probably.
definitely done it out in the woods. Like it's
Yeah.
there are
Yeah.
worse things. I've also used a T-shirt.
Ooh, wow, that's creative.
Yeah, I was like, I have one clean T-shirt. I'm going to use this T-shirt.
Dang.
That's pretty good. Um, okay, so that's spectacular. We're gonna do more Discord updates next week. I should try to figure out like some kind of newsletter thing, but it's probably not going to be as important once the Discord exists. So
Yeah.
maybe I'll just start. I'll kind of put it on social media. If you're interested in it, comment on this video or DM Light Overtime or David or I. We'll try to get it up like relatively quickly. I have a call today to talk to Ryan about some details and how we want to kind of do it and curate it. So we're gonna get right into that. It's gonna be fun. That'll be kind of the hub for our online discussions, and then hopefully I can get some kind of in-person thing happening in Lansing. David's gonna have his stuff up there. We're gonna just try to talk everybody into building their own little meetup wherever they're from in the world or in the country or whatever, and then we're gonna just like single-handedly make people get together and talk again. It's gonna be awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because again, social media is killing us all. Okay, so I have a couple of notes here. I want to talk about two more things. I don't really know how to do it, so I think I'm going to start with birding. We're in full swing birding. Uh, Elle and I got the bug already.
All
Absolutely
right.
crazy. We went out to. She was like, you know what? Let's just go bird. Let's go try to find some owls or
Oh,
something.
that's wonderful.
And I was like, let's do it. And so we woke up pretty early Saturday, yesterday, and we went out to the bird sanctuary, Hawk Meadows, around here. And it was like kind of quiet. We were like, okay, no
Hmm.
owls, no owls. And we got to the river, common merganser, golden eyes, a
Ooh.
bunch of ducks, and we were like, oh, this is pretty sick. Eastern
Hmm.
bluebird,
Oh, wow.
freaking like early plumage, yellow or goldfinch. Um, we saw chickadees are already like thriving, doing their thing. It felt like a birding day. It was so epic.
Nice.
It felt so good. She needed it so bad. I needed it so bad.
That's
Um,
great winter relief, man.
Dude, we needed it more than we could have ever imagined. I knew she needed
Yeah.
it so badly because she's just in medicine like world, and it's like medicine, sleep, eat. Sometimes you hardly eat and you do more medicine. So that was really really epic. But then we go to a second spot, Kruger's Landing, that she knew about, and right when we get there, my kingfishy boy just like going ape right on the freaking river.
Mm.
We get out of the car and she's like, there he is, and he dives. And so we kind of chase him back and forth. I got some epic photos of him actually getting a fish and getting up on a perch and chomping him. I love
Is
watching
that
that
the
bird.
series you posted?
Yeah, so epic.
Dude, the one where the water's whipping in a circle.
Yeah,
I was like, ah, that's great.
yeah.
Love that. That shows
Um,
the action.
yeah, it's so good. I was hoping for in flight. It's really hard to get them on the fish. I feel like every time the one right behind my house gets a fish, he does it like going away from me. And
Yeah.
I never really knock it out, but oh man, he got right up on that perch, chomped his fish. I snapped a bunch of photos. Um,
They
th-
don't make it easy.
they don't make it easy, but it's so rewarding. They're so cool.
Yeah.
Um, Elle got some pretty good snaps of him as well. But as
Oh,
we were
cool.
leaving, this older gentleman is walking up, and he's like, "Hey, you see anything cool?" And I saw he had like an old Canon bridge camera, like a 50x bridge camera, which I still kind of want to get just to like ID stuff when I don't have all my gear, because it's like 50x optical zoom, right? It's pretty epic. And it's like this big, but I was like, yeah, the kingfisher's over there. He's like, oh, cool. And he was telling us, Elle asked him a couple of questions, and he was like, yeah, so there's a big bald eagle nest, like right there on the river, and a couple other things. And she was like, well, have you seen any owls? And he was like, no, but what you got to do is he gave us two, like, it's like a cattle and Bennett Road or something. There's like a meat farm. And he was like, there's short-eared owls there, and they've been seeing them like every day. And he's like, sometimes you'll go there, there'll be 20 cars. And we were like, okay, so we're going there tonight. And so rest of the day goes by. We go home. She studies. We make some soup, whatever. We go back out. We roll up, and we're like, okay, this is a little weird. Like, we pull up to the road, and we think this is it. There's like a sign that says restricted authorized vehicles only. We're like, I'm kind of by the book. I was like, I don't really want to go. This like clearly is like a meat farm. This is like somebody's property. So I felt kind of weird about it, and we're floating around, and this woman is coming from the restricted area, and we're like, oh, okay. And then we like, I don't know what she's doing. We spin around. This other guy comes and he parks, and he's got a bird on his license plate. And we're like,
Uh,
okay. And it's an old gentleman walks out. We ask a question, and he parked behind the woman that we just saw coming towards us, and
uh,
she spun around and parked. And Elle asks him a couple of questions, like, yeah, so blah blah blah, tells us about the owl or whatever, and then the woman gets in his car, and he gets back in his car, and they drive up the restricted road again. But when he leaves, he reveals that the woman's license plate is just iBird, and she has like 40 bird stickers all over the.
uh-huh.
We're like, okay, so we were obviously in the right spot. We just didn't look at
Yep.
this woman's freaking license plate. And then so some more people roll in, and we're waiting
Wow.
around. I don't really know where to park. There's not like good parking. It's snowy. It's kind of a mess. And we kind of not argue, but I'm like, I don't know, like we should probably just stay up there where like they said it flew over yesterday or whatever. And it's getting darker and it's getting darker, so we're like, dude, this is gonna be really brutal. It's gonna be super hard to shoot this owl if we even see one.
Mm.
A couple of people ask us what's up. I'm like, we're bundled head to toe, and I'm like, I want to be out of the thing. We get back in the car. It's getting super dark, and we're facing back out towards where we came from. And then she's like, Siri, do owls frequent like the same places often or something? And as she's doing that, the freaking owl is coming straight up the road where I said I wanted to be. I I'm like, baby, 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 and I like open the door. She opens the door, and like we start snapping away. And he gets kind of by us. I'm at like 4,000 ISO. She unfortunately her ISO like dropped or something. It wasn't where it should have been. And I was like, dang. Flies by, and then we're like, well, that was kind of cool. And then it's just flying around. People are like, oh, it's there. Then there's a second one. I get some backlit silhouette shots that I'll post either here
Ooh.
or on our feed today.
Backlit
Um,
by what?
by the sunset.
Oh,
So
there's
like
a little bit of light. Okay.
yeah, so the silhouette of this, it's like deep sunset already, but there's orange and blue in the sky, and they like are fighting over a mouse or something. They're like swarming around each other.
Dude.
There's a third one back behind us, and we're waiting and we're chilling again. We get a second shot at shooting a couple of them. We snap off some shots. Learning moment for Elle because in that moment, if you're not familiar with your camera settings and you don't know what you're doing, that is as hard as it can be to shoot bird
Yeah.
stuff. That dark is brutal. She's on an APS-C camera. She's at f5.6 minimum, right? Like that's
Yep.
or maximum, I guess, is what you'd say. But um, and just blurry shots, just blurry shot after blurry shot. I got enough to ID it. So these are short-eared owls, which are kind of uncommon and not like super easy to shoot in this area, and they're just like residents right now. So we're gonna probably try again later today, and kind of just set up how they came in. Super epic, but got a couple of shots. At least I could ID it. I got a couple of the really cool silhouette shots. That's our first owls. Full
That's
birding.
fantastic.
It was so epic. And I guess so. She had a really early shift. It was supposed to be like a 24 call, and she like got there and it's not her like normal stuff. So they're like, "Oh, you're good. You can study or whatever." And she dips out for a little while, goes back this morning, and there's a freaking kestrel there. And so I haven't seen the images yet, but she got some shots, and I guess they frequent that area too. So
Nice.
just big field, big beef land. So there's like tons of area for rodents, and then obviously there's like barns and stuff. So there's like tons and tons, and then surrounded by forest. So it's a hot spot. It was on eBird and everything. Like
Nice.
so it's not like private. There's a ton of people there.
Yeah.
I was worried, so many cars and like people kept their lights on and everything. I was like, I hope that doesn't like deter the owl from flying. It didn't care. It flew right up the road like like they said it did, and
Wow.
everything like that. So that was spectacular. Super cool to watch them basically like dance in the sky with each other and like fight over rodents and
That's
um,
super cool. Have you looked at your images yet?
yeah. So I got them. I got the five. I got four of a sequence of them. The two kind of flying backlit. I mean, you could tell they're owls, but they're perfect silhouettes. And then I got one that's like enough to ID one of them.
Cool.
Not super sharp, not spectacular images or anything, but enough, to throw in Berta. And I'm gonna try to get more. But dude, it's brutal
Yeah.
at 6.371 f8. That dark. the second series of photos was all 12,800, and
Yeah.
it's brutal. So that was super dope. But I say all
Well, that's
that.
awesome though.
Yeah,
That's
oh yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh no, no. So that leads into this, which I think will probably be a part of your topic as well.
Oh.
Uh, Elle's On1 experience. So
Oh.
she's starting to do all of her own bird processing. Um, and so I got On1 loaded up on. She just got a Mac M3 Air.
I didn't realize you were gonna have her use it as well.
So that was kind of the goal. Was I needed something for her to have on her computer. I did not want to pay a subscription because all she needs is to be able to crop and then to do basic stuff.
Okay.
And I was like, I wanted to make sure that it was relatively intuitive and that she could figure it out. And I was like, actually, this is going to be perfect. So On1, for those listening, gives you basically the one that we bought. We got it on sale for about $50. I think it was 52.99 or something like that.
Mhm.
And it lets you put it on two devices. At least my copy says you can have it on authorized on two devices. So I have one on my main computer and I put it on hers. What I like about it and why I think it's going to really work for her workflow for this, because it's basically like that's all she's going to use it for, is like 99.9% birding. But what's nice is I can have her plug in her like Samsung T7, make a new folder, just says birds, and then have like the session. And then what I really like about On1 is you can just edit right from wherever you place your images without importing into On1 or doing anything like that. It puts the XML file right in the folder that you're editing the photos. It's like boneheaded easy. Once you get them in there, you can click the ones you want, you can rank them. I just had her start playing around with it. I showed her like two things. I didn't show her basically anything. She had very minor Lightroom experience. She had like seen me do some stuff. I had like showed her enough to kind of process basically some of her photos in the past. She instantly was using some of the AI tools to sharpen and like denoise some of her images. She was instantly like digging through it. She said she found it intuitive, um, and she thought the AI features were great. Like she, without knowing anything, like not knowing what luminance or whatever is for noise reduction, she was just like, "Oh, what do I do here?" And then it gives you a really nice before after in a way that Lightroom doesn't, like the slider. And she had seemingly no issues.
Is she someone who was already very comfortable with Lightroom or a lot of
Mm-mm.
experience?
No, I think like for the most part, it was just a little bit that I had showed her. She had like some latent experience way back when, but she didn't.
I think that helps her in this case.
Well, it does for sure because I'm looking
Yeah.
for stuff in Lightroom, right? Like the
Right.
way things
Right.
would be. It took me a while to even see that the edit and then the like other things on
Yeah.
the left,
Yes.
and then like slide over, get the presets out of the way, so you have like a full screen and stuff. But
Yeah.
she seemed to pick it up super easy. I mean,
That's awesome.
she uses like all the medical software and stuff, which is just like chaos, right? So it's not like she gets it's
Yeah. Okay.
it's like old and antiquated, like wild. There's like four different versions of like their.
So to her, everything's logical and makes sense and intuitive. Okay. All
Yeah,
right.
it's probably great. She's like, oh yeah, this is easy. But no, she sorted out all of her stuff, got all the images she wanted. I kind of made a preset to export, just because that there's a lot of exporting like options that they do,
Yeah.
which if you don't know what you're talking about or don't really know what any of that stuff is, that's actually kind of obnoxious. I thought like there wasn't like a just like simple JPEG preset. The JPEG preset was like 1200 pixel wide by default,
Yeah. Weird.
which I just thought was strange. I was like, okay, well, why wouldn't it at least be like a 1080 image? But instead it was like a 720p image. But I made that where it would just like kind of basically give her an exported 4K image. Just make the long edge 4K. All of her
Yeah.
images will come out fine, and then they'll be good for Birdo wherever she wants to share them. If she wants like to
Definitely.
throw it on an ID thing or anything like that. Um, she's not at the point where I think she's trying to print any of this stuff.
Sure.
She's mostly just like figuring it out and getting like good sharp shots. But
Yeah.
she got some bird in flight photos of the kingfisher that turned out pretty good. It's a dog. I don't know if it's the cold. Have you ever experienced like your camera autofocusing worse because it's cold?
I don't think so.
I don't think so, but like, dude, we were both having moments of struggling yesterday,
Hmm.
and it was like the real feel was 12 degrees, so it was
Yeah.
pretty frigid, but um, just some issues, and then like again, I think the lack of a joystick on the A6700 is kind of brutal because you have to like click the center button and then move the autofocus zone and then click it. And sometimes she'll bump it and she'll like be so
Mm.
focused trying to focus on the bird that it'll be off in the right corner and it'll
Oh,
take a second
bummer.
for her to process that she has to move it again. Um,
Yeah.
so I think I'm gonna try and see if there's a custom button that I can switch between the tracking and then the zone. If I can just like have her toggle between those, I think it'll be easier. And I think I'm gonna try doing instead of a white box, I'm gonna go to the red box for the autofocus and see if it helps her a little bit.
Yeah.
Just because like
That
if
might.
she went from basically kind of a little bit of DSLR experience to basically using a phone and then trying to shoot birds in flight with a freaking mirrorless camera. Like it's like
Yeah.
not easy. So the
Right.
fact that she's getting decent stuff is epic. So, but yeah,
I
yeah. What's up?
I was just curious if you could speak to any experience with On1 that you've had so far.
I reiterate that the mid-tone slider is epic.
Yeah.
I think especially if you're kind of aperture priority and exposing like I kind of do like a third of a stop to like zero point 0.7 underexposed all the time. You can basically do what I do with 3 sliders in Lightroom with the mid-tone slider and just bump it and go, cool, the exposure looks pretty good. And then like start working on your image, which is wild. That is
Mm.
I'm not gonna say that it's like underrated enough because I think that that slider, whatever it's doing, is my dream. It's incredible.
Cool.
I don't love like some of the effects options. The way that like to put a vignette is like a filter. Um, some of that stuff seems so silly to me, but I just have to do it more to mess with it. Um,
Yeah.
some of it feels kind of like an older program. Like if you go into cropping, it has like that teal colored like and something
Yeah.
about that is just a weird vibe. It makes me feel like it's like Windows 2000 again. Um,
Right.
let me get like high contrast mode for my theme or whatever. Um, but otherwise, I mean, it's for $50, it's pretty dang good. I haven't done any,
That's the most important part.
I haven't done any spot healing or anything. But like, especially if I was birding, uh, categorizing because I've never been like a power user for like collections and stuff like that, so I don't care about any
Hmm.
of that from Lightroom. I'd rather it just be cleanly in folders. It's pretty good, man.
Yeah.
It's pretty dang good. She really liked the denoising and sharpening stuff. Um,
I haven't used the denoise AI yet, so I'm excited to try that out when I have an opportunity that needs it more.
yeah,
I have used the sharpening, and I feel like I don't know if it's just me in the display, but I feel like my images are like over sharpened just on the display inside of the program. But then once I'm exported and look at them, the sharpening doesn't look as extreme as it did in the program. So maybe that's just me, and I have to change a setting or something.
sure.
But that's interesting.
Yeah, and I think the thing that made me the most proud was that, and this is just the her being pretty analytical and like not. She's a doc, she studied a lot of school, so she's not just like kind of going through the motions. Like
Yeah.
to see somebody who's barely ever edited anything use some of the AI tools, and then she already built a workflow where she knew that she added the tool and she had to back it off a ton before she wanted to add what they were doing.
Yeah.
And like I think newer photographers doing like going from a phone to higher quality images, it's really easy to do like the clarity overdone and like the sharpening overdone and like the noise reduction just to make it look like clay and like it's just like really
Right.
spent. But she instantly was backing a lot of that stuff off and trying to find a sweet spot just so she could like squeeze out a little bit more from her images where she liked them more, which was epic as hell because I was like, man, I'm pretty sure I probably was just like, oh, let me punch that clarity slider up for like at least 3 years of my photography experience, and it was just like just bad images.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
she skipped that whole thing, which is pretty epic. To be fair
I can
though,
talk a
I was on a 720p display back then, so
Yeah, yeah.
anyway.
Yes, that's going to be part of it. I can talk a little bit about my experience with it since I've done a couple of shoots and have used it for, I think my last one I imported like between 500 and 1,000 images. So
Yeah,
I've used
yeah.
it for like a massive call and edit.
Yeah, please do.
And I yeah, so culling, pretty good. About as much as I would want from it. A couple of quirks like in Lightroom, if I hit one to like what my rating and culling system is, right hand on the right arrow key, left hand on the one key. And I'm gonna rate it a one if I want to keep it and look at it at all. I don't do 2, 3, 4, or 5 star. I just leave that up to later, and I
Yeah,
just need a 1 star on any of them, and then I'll sort by rating after the fact.
that's the same for me.
In
Yeah.
this case, I don't know. It took me forever to realize that 0 didn't unrate, and you have to hit. It's like the apostrophe or something like that. Whatever the key is to the left of one on the
Oh,
on
the
the
tilde.
MacBook.
Yeah.
Yeah, the tilde unrates it. So forever I was like accidentally rating stuff, and then like going up and clicking like out of it be so I figured that out. I went into the hotkeys menu and saw there's a bunch of things in there that have some strange hotkey selections, like the transform tool. There's a transform tool, and it's like V or something. And I'm so used to like some of the like video editors where V is like just go back to like the selector, and I was like, what the heck is like I'm like hitting V thinking that's gonna assuming it's gonna go back to like just the hand tool or like whatever the selector is, and it's like transform, and like there's a like that teal box shows up, and it's like I don't know what this is. So anyway, I dug into the hotkeys and I was like, oh, there's a bunch of weirdo stuff in here that I'm never gonna need, but all right. But other than that, culling was pretty good. I culled about a few hundred images, 500, something like that, down to 50, and I spent about 4 hours editing those 50 images from a shoot I did last week, which I'll also talk about. But
Dang.
the editing process, it only took me a couple hours to really start feeling like, yeah, this is not as this is as intuitive as I think it should be for people who aren't coming from Lightroom, and is just fine as long as those Lightroom converts are going to put in the effort to like learn the differences.
Sure.
So I went on the website for On1 and watched the most recent like 3 or 4 video tutorials. There was some like recorded live streams of just some editing and stuff, and I found them to be very helpful. Because there's I think the biggest thing for me was trying to come to terms with the idea that this truly is like a Lightroom Photoshop mashup.
Yeah.
And a lot of the effects that would normally be sliders that live like live on Lightroom are tied into an effect you have to apply that then goes to a layer.
Yeah.
And so often I was like, where's this thing that's just a slider on Lightroom? It's a couple. Most of what you'd expect to be there is there as a slider, and you can get everything done pretty much with those. But if you want to do like glow effects, and if you want to do masking, that's a big one that I had to like hurdle over to understand a little bit better. They're all tied into like an effect that gets applied as a layer, which is fine. It's non-destructive, and that's great. It's just learning that workflow, and so it was like, I want to apply a glow layer, but then I only want to mask it. I really like that you can create an a luminosity mask with one button on a layer, and that can be tied to a glow layer. So like you can have like the highlights be glowing in like 2 clicks, which is super cool.
Yeah.
What I think is I really am missing like the quick pull down sliders for gradient masking and stuff. So I'm still working through like how to efficiently mask.
Yeah.
But it's there. Like it's like as powerful. It feels as powerful as Photoshop feels. You just got to find the workflow for all the things you want.
Yeah.
So I highly encourage people, if you're trying to get off Lightroom, just take a look at the program. I'm not going to endorse it right now because, I've spent the last 2 decades with Adobe.
Right.
So with a couple of weeks with On1 isn't going to tell me you should buy it, but it's pretty powerful. And for a one-time payment, you can get away with a whole lot of things that Lightroom and Photoshop do together.
Yeah. Well, and here's the thing. Like, I have existing workflows for, like, cleaning up images to post to work. For doing like my blur masking on like Teams guys, SWAT guys, stuff like that to like OPSEC,
Yeah.
And that, if I didn't have any of that stuff for Photoshop, I think you're gonna see that a large majority of your photography can be handled pretty easily in On1.
Yeah.
I'm impressed with like pretty much everything I've seen so far. The like subject masking and stuff was not nearly as clean, obviously, but they don't probably have millions of dollars going into AI stuff at the moment.
I thought about that too. I was looking at some of my images, and if you go, there's like mask selectors where you can go in and it'll say, "Here's your water, here's your foliage,
Yeah,
here's this and that and this and that," and it's different for every one. It really does go in and it tries to identify all the parts of your image,
right.
and so you can have like quick selection masks based on what you're looking at. But it's not perfect for sure. Some of them were better than others. They're trying, but they're not Adobe, so I do have to keep that in mind. They don't have Adobe money.
Yeah, well, and that's just in the last probably 18 months that
Right,
Adobe's like subject masking was as good as it was. Because when they
right.
first did that like detection stuff, probably 2 years ago or maybe three, I don't know. It's kind of a blur. Obviously, since 2020, my entire life is a blur. But uh, whenever that came out, like I didn't use it for the longest time. I
Yeah,
still would go into Photoshop if I had to do like serious masking and like
sure.
really, really subject isolate and stuff. But now it's really freaking good in Lightroom.
Yeah,
So you're talking about like a Goliath company versus I don't even know who owns On1 or what their budget looks like or how many like concurrent
right,
users they have, but it's not going to be Adobe. It just isn't.
right.
So the fact that they're as powerful as they are, this is the closest I've gotten to being able to recommend a non-Lightroom option, especially for
Yeah.
almost all the people I talk to who I know are going to go in. They want to sort their images, crop their images, and basic edit their images. And then maybe a couple extra things. This is like that sale price is so
You're
nuts.
covered. Beyond
It's
that, you're covered. Yeah.
yeah, it's so good. So that's cool. I'm glad. Again, like
Yeah.
I said, I haven't gotten into the weeds of it a lot, but it's really cool to be able to like sit down and throw like a documentary on with Elle and kind of watch her. And I thought I was gonna have to help her more. I think she asked me like one question, and then I helped her
Uh,
export. She didn't ask me anything. She just crushed it. So like
nice.
I have to say, based off a subject of one, uh, it's fairly intuitive.
Right.
She is enjoying her experience. There's nothing that she's been like, this sucks. This is annoying. So like I don't know. That says I think a lot.
Another thing that I do like about it is I like that you're excited about the fact that you don't need to do like the import process the way Lightroom does.
Yeah.
But I like the fact that they give you the option if you do
Yeah.
want to do it that way.
Right.
You can import and you can apply keywords and add metadata tags and things like that on the way in if you want to take an SD card and import like you do with Lightroom. It totally allows you to do
Yeah.
that, which I think is very cool. That is the way I've been doing it because I actually like I don't format my card very often, so I like the fact that I can just like deselect what I don't want imported and then just only work on those things
Yeah.
in a place where I want it to go. So the fact that you can do either or,
Yeah.
that's great. But the only I think there's like one thing that I would really would like, and I might submit the feedback because there's probably not a ton of people doing that for them. Is in masking, to like painting on your mask. You can turn on or off the ability to see the mask or just see the image and your effects as they're being applied. I really miss having the ability to see a transparency of the mask and the image behind it, so that I can kind of see the painting of the mask and the image. So like
Oh,
if I'm like
is
trying
it
to
like
like
solid red?
it's solid black and white.
Oh, okay, got it.
Yeah, or you could turn the visibility of the mask off and see the image. So like if you're applying like like deep contrast or something, you can see it happening as you're painting. But I'd like to see a transparent layer of the mask as well,
Yeah.
just to like be confident that I know because. I think I'm used to that. I think in Photoshop you can do that. I can't remember if you could really do that in Lightroom or not.
It's by
But yes,
default in my Lightroom. It's like a basically you can just see like a light red, and I think you can even change the amount of
that's
opacity
right.
the red
Yeah,
has.
yeah, yeah. That's right. And I miss that. Just having that extra little confidence that you're actually masking where you really want to be masking.
It makes
Um,
brushing like super fast. Yeah.
right. Yeah. And speaking of performance, it's not blazingly fast. I don't know about
Sure.
you. M3
the
MacBook
export is
Pro.
slow.
I didn't even the export isn't really what bothered me, but like editing 50 in a row, I was applying effects and masking on all of them, basically. It did seem like a compounding little bit of slowdown as I went on doing that. But
Mm,
I also felt that way about Lightroom too. Like the more masking, especially when you started spot healing in Lightroom,
yeah,
your whole like workflow tended to slow down, and I think it cached a lot of that stuff. And I
yeah,
think On1 operates similarly. It wasn't bad by any means, but I did notice, like, I think when I went into clone, because I don't think they have a spot heal that's similar to Lightroom spot heal, but they have a clone tool. And even with clone tool, it seemed like there were a couple points where it was lagging a little bit.
yeah.
So I don't know if that's just them needing to optimize for, M3 or whatever it is for Mac OS. I don't know. Like we said, their teams are probably pretty small. The budgets are pretty small. Just the fact that you have the option in the first place is great. There's work to be done for them. It's not a perfect program by any means, but
Right.
I think performance wise, it was on par with Lightroom in most in in general for that session. I have a commercial shoot coming up next week that will push it a little further. Probably not with like effects at all, but I will have for sure like five x the images to import and
Sure.
look at.
Yeah. I think
So
I mean, I still think Lightroom's kind of a dog when it comes to doing a lot of spot healing and stuff. So like
yeah.
I unless I'm doing one or two, literally one or two, I go to Photoshop because it's brutal, man.
Well, you're
And
talking to a dude who shoots at f16 and doesn't clean his dust off his sensor, and so I am very familiar with spot healing about 50 spots in
can
some certain
can
situations.
can you do that before your commercial shoot, please?
Oh, that's a good idea, maybe.
Can you clean your
But I'll be at f2.8 and f1.8,
do
f1.4
do
for all
you
those
need
images.
do you need sensor cleaning tools?
You
I
can't get me to care
I have
enough,
a
man.
pack right there, and it'll make your life so good. It takes less than 5 minutes.
Well, I just got the filter for the 28 to 105, so I'm good. I don't need to clean the sensor ever.
I died. The fact that like you're almost proud of it in your short made me want to die. I was like, ah, just clean it, man. Just clean it. See, I'm a video
One
guy.
day.
I don't get the luxury
Oh, yes.
of like spot healing. In video, I'll lose my mind if
You're
there's
dead. Yeah, there's
if
nothing
there's
you
a
can
dusty
do.
spot. It's so bad.
Nothing worth your time. Yeah.
Anyway, but
But
that's
anyway,
great. I think if you're on the fence about where you need to go for editing, take a look at On1. Again, neither of us are giving it a full sign on. We're not
right.
sponsored by them or anything. We just were kind of desperate to find an alternative. I wanted to be able to recommend something to someone
Yeah.
rather than say, "Oh, you don't have money. Well, you're still going to have to get Lightroom if you want to take any of your photography seriously." That sucks. That's
Right.
like that makes people feel bad. Like they're like, "Oh, I'll never actually be able to do like real photography." Because that's what it feels like to people. I've gotten that feedback.
Mhm.
So, that sucks and you shouldn't have damn near a monopoly on a process that, you know. And like there's all the other like meh stuff. There's a lot of iPad apps and there's some apps on the phone, but like that's not a way to do sessions. That's not a way to do like proper editing for
Oh,
portraits and
I'm
stuff.
glad you brought that up. I realized that there's an On1 mobile app. I told you about this.
Yeah.
I imported RAWs from my camera to my phone. It doesn't work with the Sony RAW files on the mobile app.
That sucks.
It really sucks. So I had to
Yeah.
shoot JPEG for one thing, and I so I'll have to figure out something else. I have other editors on my phone, but it's just like, why, man? You have a whole program that handles RAWs. Where's the hang up there?
Yeah.
So
That's
that does suck.
I'm still very into my current workflow for like my casual stuff, which is I use the Creator app with the Sony, bring in the raw file into my phone, and then drop it into Lightroom, and I'm pretty happy with those edits.
Sure.
Like I did a handful of my like party shutter drag images like that. I've done a bunch of birds. Just like if I have a camera and I'm taking bird photos, but we only have one camera with us, and Elle will say, "Can I take a couple?" I'll put hers on my phone, edit them for her, and then just send her the JPEG so she has them.
Mm.
and that works really great. It's slow as heck transferring RAWs over Wi-Fi, but it does the job.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so that's pretty much it for the big topics. I did want to ask you if you saw the SL3S release or anything about it. You don't follow Leica stuff, but
I did read a short article about it today, but I don't know much about the camera itself.
yeah, so it's just the SL3. They did an SL2S, which is just instead of the big 60 megapixel, it goes down to 24. It makes it a little bit better for hybrid shooting, whatever, and it's a lot cheaper. It's just like a way to kind of, well, I don't think it's a lot cheaper. I think it's subtly cheaper, but um, what's funny about it is for some reason a couple of videos from some creators that I don't really follow popped into my recommended, and they're big channels, but it's clear why I don't really follow them. I flipped on the video and it was this dude, like, he's a great photographer. His work looks awesome. He does professional stuff out in Asia. Um, and it was like copium to the max. He was like, yeah, so now because it has phase detect autofocus, right? So
Mm.
they are the last company to finally put phase detect, and they're like in cahoots with Panasonic. So Panasonic got all their stuff. It's probably all kind of very similar, right? L Mount Alliance, all that stuff,
Mm.
and they're like, yeah, so it's finally in the fight with Sony, Nikon, and Canon, and I had to laugh. I was like, first of all, watch your mouth. Second of all, Panasonic isn't even there, and they've been like kind of doing it for a minute. So, and they're not in the conversation yet. Like,
It's in the fight getting its teeth kicked in.
yeah, yeah, it's like Canon, Nikon, and Sony were fighting, and then
Yeah.
Leica came in the room, and they all looked at him, and they're like, "You guys want to kick the heck out of this dude?" And then they jumped him. Like, no, I mean, I'm mostly joking, but it's just like the SL line is so funny because it's like, let's do Leica, but like professional photography vibes, like kind of the SLR-ish version of a mirrorless. Let's do like, the Trinities. The lenses are painfully expensive. Fortunately, you can
Mm.
do the Sigmas and stuff on there now, which is epic. You can put the
Yeah.
Panasonics on there, which is epic. But like the Leica lenses are insane for the money and like what they're even doing. And they're usually less features, right? Which I think is hilarious. Um, but it's interesting that they're still seemingly pushing this like very expensive. I think it's probably closer to like the A7 IV, like in spec and stuff like
Right.
that. So it just feels old. The sensors are cool. There's a little bit of magic in the Leica lenses, which is something, but again, I wouldn't use those on this. It's just interesting, and I was like, they've
It's like
done it. They've come in last place.
it's like comparing a luxury car to a sports car, right? Like
Yeah, yeah.
it's not going to be top tier tech and performance, but you're paying for the luxury brand because it feels like luxury, right?
Right. Yeah, it's like when you realize as an adult that Maseratis are actually just like sharp-looking cars and they're kind of crappy. They're like not better, but they're way more expensive. Like I'd rather have a Corolla probably. But yeah. Anyway, it's interesting. It's cool
Yeah.
that that's getting phase detect. What's cool about it as well is it sounds like Panasonic might finally have updates to their like higher end cameras. It sounds like the what is it, the SH1 R2, whatever they're gonna call it, the SH2R or whatever their large
Yeah.
megapixel, basically the A7R version of their cameras are, but it'll have phase detect and it'll be kind of interesting, and it'll be like half the price of this Leica. So
Yeah.
that's just interesting. That's probably the biggest news coming out. There's a lot of Chinese companies doing a lot of lenses, and we're just waiting to hear about a new Sony body. So
Very soon.
yeah,
Hopefully very
yeah, I
soon.
got I got my fingers crossed, man. I've been back and forth in the 28 to 70 f2 realm, kind of talking through what makes sense. Just like I talk at Elle and she acts like she cares or is helping me, but
Well, where are you at today?
where I'm at today is I still really wish I could justify it,
Yeah.
but I almost was like, okay, well, let's look again at the 24 to 70 f2.8 because I don't know that I want to go to the size of the 28 to 105 again. I don't think I take it around as much. It's objectively such a great lens. My buddy Taylor just got it, and he loves it, and he says the same thing. Like, I can do anything on this lens, and I completely agree with that. And for the price, it's unbeatable. But just the video stuff, I use the wide end so much, and I need distortion correction in camera.
Mm.
So I was like, okay, well, like let's look at that. It breathes and it has distortion, and I was like, then I can't do the 28 to 70 Sigma. Uh, but I think the 28 to 70 GM2 is $1,000 cheaper than the 28 to 70 f2. $1,000.
24 to. Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
24 to
Okay.
70 to the 28 to 70 f2
Yeah. Yeah.
f2.8 is $1,000 cheaper with like a creator discount, right?
Yeah.
Even if they were to do 20% off of that lens, 20% off, it would still be $500 more expensive than. And I go, is f2 that important? Is it $500 important? And then is it $500 and 4 millimeters on the wide end important?
Mm-hmm.
And I go, I don't know that it is. I do want a standard zoom. I think it's great, but like even the 28 to 70 f2.8, the cheapest one from Sigma, which I use at work all the time and I love. I do great work with it.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be where I want to put my money just because I want to get rid of the distortion. I want to have no breathing compensation, or no breathing, focus breathing rather. And so I think I'm like holding out because I want to see what this body looks like, but it's likely that with the next body that comes out, I'll probably get one of the two GM standard zooms because it's pretty much all I really need right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. And then the latter half, I've been back and forth about this bird lens to have the A6700 be its like standalone bird camera, and 400, I think yesterday proved to just not quite be enough for L. And the big
On APS-C.
yeah, on APS-C with a 2x. So it's a 70 to 200
Whoa.
with a 2x teleconverter. So you're getting
Oh,
basically
yeah.
200 to 600 mil, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And I was like, and I'm in APS-C mode all the time on the A7 IV. So I'm at like 900 because I use a 200 to 600 in APS-C mode. I shoot at 15 megapixel APS-C mode basically all the time because it's just like I need the reach generally, especially with like the owls and stuff. Like that's brutal. The Kingfisher's tiny, so when he's flying around, like you're gonna have to crop in a ton anyway. So, um, I don't know what we're gonna do there, but I'm kind of considering the Tamron 150 to 500. Um, I just got to balance out that weight to.
Have
like,
you considered camouflage?
Yes.
Just getting closer.
Well, yes, and that's a thing. But there's just so many times where you can't, but you want to ID the bird. I think.
I know. I know. Yeah.
Like I get as close as possible, but like through the trees at like the river sometimes, like there's just no way, especially when it's snowy in the river. We're trying to get these mergansers and stuff, and it's like I'm pushing it with 600 in APS-C mode.
Mhm.
But we just want like a sharp-ish, very ideable photo.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, right? The fun thing about birds is like I'm balancing taking serious photography, trying to get like the best photo I can of a bird, and then just trying to get good, ideable photos sometimes when it's rare birds. Because I also
I
care
think
about the bird part.
this is a funny topic because there's a lot of birders out there who become photographers to help them ID. And then there's me, like a photographer who gets into birding because the bird photos can be fantastic.
Yeah.
And there's this world that exists where they collide and you have to kind of like coexist and help each other out. Because I bought waders to get in the water
Yeah.
to like get my camera at the water level to make fantastic photos. And I'll be like, I don't know which bird it is sometimes, but it's a great photo. Look, help me ID it. So it's funny that those two people exist side by side in that niche because it is quite niche with the money you tend to have to spend to get to the results that
Yeah.
both of those sides of that niche tend to get. And they exist elsewhere too. I think product photography and maybe some other elements have that kind of dynamic two-sided situation going on with the types of people that are in them. But very funny, very funny. I can just say that it does help to plan it out. You know, if you're looking for something that hunts dawn and dusk, get there when it's pitch black basically, and get in the spots that you know that they're. So man, putting in that work can help you, but I definitely understand the reach argument.
Yeah.
It's there.
Well, and so I'm also balancing like trying to be a photographer and trying to get Elle set up like with all this new stuff. She still is like fast. Like let's keep walking,
Yeah.
let's find a new spot, all that stuff. And I'm like, we need to chill if we're gonna get like a sick photo of this bird.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'll push her patience a little bit because I'm like I'm not done like hanging out with this kingfisher right now. Like I'm not
Right.
done doing it. I'm gonna get a better photo of him. I'll walk back and
Right.
forth on this river all day.
You have to balance how uncomfortable she could be
Right.
with the whole outing as far as how you want to approach it versus how she wants to approach it too.
Yeah, and so there's that balance, which is
Yeah.
I think good for me as well, right? Because
Sure.
it's I mean it's the gold in a relationship is trying to figure out what that it's never compromising. It's always like figuring out what's important, right? I hate the word compromise because in a compromise both parties lose every time. That's how I feel. But it's sacrificing something that you might want to do to see more birds that day is that's not a compromise. It's making a decision to say, okay, I think I'm going to give this bird another shot else at a different time.
Yeah.
And so I just balance that out, and I think it's important to do so. And because sometimes I also get fixated. Like there, as early as I can remember us birding together, when she wasn't even taking photos yet, she wanted me to come over to get a photo of like probably something sick, probably like the first time we saw like a a rose-breasted grosbeak or something like that, and I'm just like shooting a house wren because it's like right in front of me, and I'm getting like
Yeah.
I'm getting awesome house wren photos, right? And it's like, sorry, I was very kind of ADHD fixated on
Yeah.
getting a sick photo of this like kind of pointless bird that I'll have a million other tries to get.
Yep.
So it's a good balance. I like having I like doing it together rather than if I was alone. But
Well, it's just been fantastic to watch you both grow into it like that together.
yeah,
I think that's honestly pretty unique. I think there's not a lot of people out there who would pick up a hobby alongside that actually demands so much attention and effort
yeah,
from that person who otherwise wouldn't have been into it at all.
yeah. We pretty much say how lucky we are every time we're out and we're having a good bird day because we're like, this is so epic. Like,
That's so cool.
yeah, it ends up being like, hey, let's go out for the morning, and then it's like 2, and I'm making soup, and she's like, I just want to go back out, and I'm like, we're not gonna see a whole lot right now, so it's not like
Yeah.
super valuable to, but I made you this soup.
Yeah.
And then, but then we go out again at night and stuff like that, and it's a lot of fun. So, I'm definitely excited. We're already like kind of back in the thick of it. I think this is gonna be a pretty big year. I think we're already. I'm north of 10 species shot,
Fantastic.
and I haven't uploaded.
You're
like,
making me want to like turn my laptop off and go grab my lens right now and head outside, even though it's 0 degrees.
Yeah, it's gonna be brutal the next couple of days down here. It's supposed to hit like negative
Yeah.
20, so
Yeah.
it's gonna strong halt, but we're excited.
Yeah.
So there'll be a lot more of that. I just need to figure out. I got another tripod that I'm gonna be picking up soon, a better kind of carbon fiber one.
Nice.
And I think I'm gonna get a gimbal head now. I think because I'm doing
Ooh.
a lot of birds in flight stuff, and I think I just like I'm at the limit. I'm missing a ton of shots because I'm trying to hand hold these epic birds, and I think I just need to like post up, get those legs nice and wide and stable, and just start trying to get used to that gimbal.
If you don't want to spend the money on a gimbal right away, I have had success with having the tripod foot on a ball head that's slightly loosened and you
Yeah.
can really swivel. I mean, that gets you like somewhat of the way there, but it's certainly not a gimbal.
There's a pretty decent Oben carbon fiber gimbal head for like $135.
Oh, nice.
So I think I'm gonna start there, and it should be pretty good. It should be just like at least a little better than using a ball head, because like I've also just like
Yeah.
I've also used one of my video heads and just turned the drag really really low, so it's pretty stable because it has a
Yeah.
nice counterbalance and stuff on my really nice 502 video head, and
Sure.
that can be kind of good, but yeah, I think something light that I can throw on my back and then have it. That's gonna be epic because I'm trying to brace off of stuff and like sitting down with my knees up and trying to like dude, it's a freaking 200 to 600. It's not light. And you can do it. You can do it like for 10 minutes, and then
Yeah.
then you're SOL,
Most-
so.
Most wildlife photographers who are like gonna buy a gimbal for this stuff are using it on like 600 f4s and stuff that are just real heavy and big and a pain to actually like
Yeah,
back and forth. Yeah.
I do want to rent that this year.
Yeah.
I've seen probably like 3 or 4 reels now where it's like the 180 to 600 versus the 600, or like Canon's 100 to 500, and it's like this shot, and then it's just like this freaking epic mega. I mean, they're $14,000 lenses, so
Hmm.
you're gonna have better contrast. They're primes. There's a lot going on for telephoto glass. Like you don't want to put it through a bunch of poorly designed lenses. That's how you degrade image. But I do want to try, and like I'm probably, when we have a Tawas trip planned during the bird migration, I think I'm gonna try and rent a 600 and um, go pretty bananas with that, just so I can have the experience.
In the meantime, you can go wide at Kensington Park and just have birds come to your hand with like bird seed in your hand. See all them people doing that. Like
Yeah.
tons of sandhill cranes will come right up to you and eat out of your hand.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about that necessarily, but it is
Same.
it's neat.
Yeah.
I definitely, like, I don't even, we've talked about this before, but I don't even know how I feel about doing zoo stuff.
Yeah. I think it's just for me, it's a matter of being transparent about it. I'll go to a zoo and take photos.
Yeah.
Absolutely, I will.
I just wouldn't feel the same about them. Like, I just wouldn't care that
Right.
much.
I
Like,
wouldn't feel the same about it.
90% of the fight is like, we saw this bird today. I have no good photos of these owls, and I'm so stoked about it still.
Yeah. That's awesome.
So, anyway, running a little long for a test
Mm-hmm.
a test episode with this new setup. So, if you heard any crazy weird audio stuff, please let me know in the comments. If there's anything weird about this episode at all, please let me know in the comments. Again, let us know if you have interest in the Discord. Let us know what you've been up to, what you've been shooting. We really do want to kind of cultivate a nice little community here to chat and get good and share tips and just enjoy our favorite hobby of all time. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's fantastic. Thanks for listening, guys. We'll see you in a couple of weeks, probably.
Yeah. Heck yeah. Later.
Bye bye.